Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Funding Flip Side. I'm Barb Dunn. This is Nikki. And we have a special guest today, Jaime Kim. So,
Hi, Jamie.
started a little bit about yourself.
All right. So thank you, Barb and Nikki, for having me on today. It's a pleasure. I'm normally not used to being on a podcast or, you know, recording myself to put myself out there publicly, but I'm starting to step out of my comfort zone, right? So my name is Jamie Kim, and I am in the Gator community, also a top tier TC. And I've been in it for about 3 years on the Gator side, and on the top tier side, I'm little over a year, right? So that is what I do as my W-2 now. And as of year and a month ago, I left my W-2 job because of what Pace has created for his community.
Hmm,
So
nice.
yeah,
I'm glad you're here with us. Check it
thank you.
out. Trust me. I mean, I don't know if you've heard my story, but I had one Facebook page or a
Mhm.
Facebook page. I don't even know the term. I posted one thing in 8 years.
Wow.
So that's so if I can do all this, you can do all this, really.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's taking some time to get used to, but
Yeah.
yeah, so far so good.
Yeah. Well, we just get to see you typically in big meetings with a lot of different people and a lot of different investors. So it's kind of nice just to get to know you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm normally behind the scenes, not really on like the front end, because my husband Jason is normally the one with the camera on, and I'm just sitting at the side, listening to the conversation. But yeah, today
Not
I have the
anymore. Great. So you're in Hawaii, you mentioned, and how long are you going to be there for?
Yes, so I recently moved to Hawaii back about, it's been 3 months now because I moved February 4th. I know the exact date
Mm,
because we closed on. So what happened was I used to reside in Los Angeles, California, right? And then um, my husband Jason and I used to visit Hawaii pretty frequently. And when we were dating, Jason used to tell me that, hey, like I would like to go ahead and retire at Hawaii, right? And
mm,
as you guys are aware, there's many different islands in Hawaii, but the most famous one is Oahu, and people like to visit Honolulu and Waikiki, right? So when they think about Hawaii, it's that's what it first comes into mind, like white sand, blue waters, great food, laid back vibes, and all these things, right? But it's too laid back for me
mm,
personally because I've grown up in the city. I've never left Los Angeles, and before moving to Hawaii, I used to live 2 blocks away from the Walk of Fame stars from the
mm.
Hollywood Boulevard. So I'm very used to like crowded, like fast-paced, busy environment. So when he said that he wanted to move to Hawaii, I was like, I kind of like brushed it off. I was like, yeah, maybe, right? We're not gonna be. I'm 32, so for me to retire, it's gonna be a while. But Jason's been on the older side. However, it's not like we're gonna retire in like 2, 3 years. So I was like, I just kind of like brushed it off, right?
Mm.
That was about a year ago, right? And then now I'm living in Hawaii and we're probably going to retire in Hawaii. It's not Oahu or Waikiki or Honolulu. I'm actually on the Big Island, right? I'm towards about 28 miles away from Hilo, in an area called Pahoa. And what happened was some of our partners back in Southern California, Grant and Kevin, they are part of Orange County Venture Group. They're the main founders, two of the founders out of couple that has founded this community meetup, right? And they do a lot of business on this island in Hawaii. They're wholesalers. And then they do direct to agent. And one of their agent was just like, hey, like I have a distressed seller, right? Who just came out of a foreclosure. He's on the older side. He wants to retire and doesn't want to like manage this property anymore, right? So are you interested in purchasing? So then Grant and Kevin was just like, yeah, like we'll take a look at it, and they got it under contract, right? And then it's we're zoned as agricultural and commercial. It's 19 acres, and what it used to be was a retreat center, right? That all these people across the world will come to like find themselves and to just relax and enjoy the environment, right? And then so they got it under contract, and then they didn't know what to do with it because it's zoned as commercial and they're normally familiar with single family residences. So then they called Jason. And when they called Jason, we happened to be in Honolulu, just kind of like enjoying our vacation. And then Jason's like, hey, like we're in Honolulu, right? And I was just like, I was bored. And as a joke, it was semi joke. I was like, hey, we'll hop over and take a look at it, right? Because I looked up the flights, and flights were only like $65 um for like one way from Honolulu to Hilo, right? And then so I was just like, okay, like I've never been to the Big Island, let's hop over, right? And we hopped over, and my knucklehead, and this is why Google is your friend, right? Everybody learn to use Google and research. I just typed in um airport on the like Big Island. I didn't know there was two. So we ended up flying into Kona when the retreat center that Grant and Kevin got under contract is closer to Hilo. So I could have flown into Hilo and just did a 35-minute drive. Instead, I was like, what's the airport in Big Island? And they're like, Kona, right? Because it was more popular. So we flew into Kona, drove 2.5 hours, right? And then I was like, this is so ugly, right? Like, I was like, this is not what I envisioned. Like, this is not your typical island. When you think about Hawaii, white sands, blue water, all these stuff that I told you guys in the beginning, it's just black, right? And I was just like, why is there no trees? Why is everything black? Like, why is the weather so gloomy? Why is it raining? And then Jason's like, oh, these are lava rocks because we have active volcano erupting on this island, right? I was like, you mean like there's a chance that I can get hit by like lava, right? Like I don't know, right? And I was like, I don't know if I like it here, right? And then as we were driving through the islands, it got more green. It started becoming more jungle, right? And then when we arrived at the property, it's like beautiful here, right? And
Nice.
then we ended up purchasing, right? $0 out of our pocket. We raised the whole funds within our community, and this is like the power of like what Pace has created for us, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to, I tell Nikki this all the time, right? Like it's been a phenomenal journey, right? You don't need to know how to do everything yourself, right? If you don't have, you can either purchase real estate with your money or you can purchase it with your skill sets. And I think that's what closing this deal has taught me, right? And what Jason, my husband, has shown me because we now are general partners in this project, right? We're gonna revive it and we're gonna bring it back on the market, right? And then we're gonna be open for operationals probably within like a year and a half to 2 years, fully open. Um, and yeah, like zero out of our pocket, Eric Bauman paces, social media and like, cameraman behind the scene. He's phenomenal, right? He put down the EM, right? And then Nikki and a couple of other people helped us raise the remaining funds for the purchase, right? And then we bought this on seller finance, no payment to the seller for 2 years. And then once we get a loan, we're gonna do a cash out refi and then start making payments to the seller, right? With the balloon payment, if we need additional time, Jason has negotiated and put in there that we can get a year extension, right? So yeah, basically I'm living on the property, right, as a project manager. And the transition has been somewhat difficult because I went from being a city girl, having a coffee shop, like a popular coffee shop 3 blocks down the line. Now I have down the road. Now I have to drive 35 minutes one way to get, decent coffee if I wanted to go to a shop, right?
Yeah.
Internet is terrible. Like it took us forever to get Starlink here. There's geckos everywhere. I have wild pigs, right? Termites are swarming at night. Why is it constantly raining, right? But with all this, complaint, amazing things on the property, right? I have like avocado trees. I have strawberry guava. I didn't even know that was a thing. I have cacao tree, macadamia nut tree. What else
Mm.
do I have? I have star fruit. I have mountain apple, soursop. I have all these beautiful trees that I get to pick off of and eat,
Mm.
right? So
Nice.
it's literally like um kind of living my dream of kind of like a farm to table kind of thing, like enjoying myself in the nature.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was a lot, but I
It's
I am
good.
currently.
Oh, and she's frozen.
Oh,
Jamie, when you unfreeze. Oh,
can you
Yeah,
can
hear us?
sorry.
There she is.
Yes, I can hear you guys. So
Hey.
it's gonna start raining soon.
okay. I
It's
have a
gonna
question
start
for you.
raining soon. I'm sorry.
Before it
Mhm.
starts to rain, I'm going to ask you a question because then you might have bad connection. Um, so when you found out about Pace, I have a question. I'm going to back up a little bit. When you found out about Pace, and congratulations on your Hawaii property. Um, when you
Thank
found out
you.
about Pace, um, did you immediately join? Tell us what happened when you are like, I'm going to do this. Like all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to join Gator.
So the reason why I joined Gator, um, well, the way I joined is kind of like not the norm or like typical, because most people just will hear and then just will sign up. I was driving down the freeway, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Am I breaking out?
A little bit,
Nope,
yeah.
you're okay.
Can you guys? Okay. So I went to visit my parents, right? Because they relocated from Los Angeles, California to San Bernardino County. And it was the weekend, so I went to go see my parents. And then my work was like, hey, like we need you. My staffs were like, hey, I'm sick, I can't come in. And I couldn't find anybody to cover their shift. So I was like, okay, I'll come in, right? And back in the day when I used to work, I used to manage an outpatient radiology facility. And what does the manager do if you can't find anybody to cover anybody's shift? Like you have to come in because you cannot close your business, right?
Right.
So then I was like, okay, I got there and then I spent about 2 hours with my family and I was like, I have to go, right? So then I got in my car and I was driving and then Pace was doing the Gator method advertising kind of like Zoom session, live session, right? And he was explaining what this thing was about. And then I was just like, hey, is this guy like legit, right? Because this sounds too good to be true, right? But I was just like, I'm gonna join, right? Because he sounds like this sounds very phenomenal. I want to know what it is about, right? So I literally pulled over to the shoulder of the free. I was driving down the I-15 and I pulled over because this is where he got me. He was just like, now the prices are gonna go up, right? And then I was just like, okay, it's about 2.5 hour drive because once I get down to the I-10, there's traffic, right? And for me to get to my desk, it's gonna be 2.5 hours. And I was like, I can't miss this discounted price because he's like, it's gonna go up to like whatever amount. I don't even remember because this was back in like 2022, right? And then so I pulled over to the shoulder of the freeway and I pulled out my phone and then I was like, I transfer money from my one account to another account, and I paid for the mentorship, right? And then I completely forgot about it. I didn't even use it until like a year later, right? Until like a year later. And the reason why I forgot about it wasn't because like, oh, like the community or the mentorship wasn't phenomenal. I forgot about it because I like I mentioned, I used to work at an outpatient radiology facility, and we used to be open 7 days a week, meaning Sunday through Sunday. Okay.
Mm.
Mondays, Monday through Saturdays was 6 a.m. until 11 p.m.
Ooh,
Sundays were 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. Okay. And
wow.
then so being being a center director and like an office manager who oversees the whole operation, right? My day doesn't end until the facility closes. Because yes, I may be at the office from, like 9 a.m. to like 5:30, but I am still on call at home with my work laptop attending my employees, right? To my
Mhm.
staffs. Because I can't just be like, hey, I'm off of the clock. You guys figure it out on your own, right?
Yeah.
So for me to do any type of anything on top of what I was doing was too much on my plate and I couldn't handle, right? And then I started getting serious when my mom passed. So during COVID, my mom ended up passing away, not because of
Mm,
COVID, but she used to have end stage kidney failure. And
mm,
that was not too long ago before she passed. But when I was in high school, she ended up getting stroke. So her right side was paralyzed, right? And she went to therapy and things like that, but she couldn't really utilize her right side even after going to therapy. So that was just kind of like the norm for her, right? And then her kidney started failing, so she had end stage kidney failure. And then we put her on dialysis at home, right? So every night, my younger sister would hook her up on a machine and then she would get her dialysis done, right?
mm,
Then when you are sick and you have diabetes, high blood pressure, and you're on dialysis, blood circulations and things like that, it doesn't really, your body doesn't function well, right? So one thing
mm,
that diabetic patients need to watch out for is circulation. And that's important because when your circulation doesn't go down all the way to your feet, right, and you have a cut or something like that, you start to get infection, you don't heal well, right? So she ended up stabbing her toe at something while she was showering, or I don't know what it was. And she got a cut. And it was a minor cut that turned into like an infection. And one day when I visited home, her toe was kind of like black, right? Her right toe. And
mm.
then I took her to her foot doctor, and then they transferred her into an emergency room, and then they had her toe amputated because they're like, hey, like there's no way to save it and it's gonna spread. So she ended up losing her right toe. And then later, I don't think they treated the infection completely. Later, her left foot started getting the same infection, and I had to get her hospitalized. And they ended up amputating up to above her knees. And then when they were giving her the anesthesia, I don't think her body could take it anymore, and the dialysis wasn't working fast enough to, withdraw all of the toxics. She went into a coma, right?
Mm.
And then, long story short, she was hospitalized for about a month and a half, and I had to pull the life support on her. I just
Oh,
pulled. We just decided as a family that the life that she was gonna have, even if she makes it out of the hospital,
yeah.
it's traumatic on her, right?
Mhm.
And during COVID, also my sister was using a hand sanitizer from this brand called Arts, ART. And at that time, anybody, not just like medical facilities, but any individual to get your hands on hand sanitizer, toilet paper, anything like that, masks, when COVID first outbroke was very, very hard, right? And people were reselling these items like crazy on Amazon and things like that, right? And then so I think her work just kind of like bought whatever it was that they can to kind of them to their employees when they were still able to come into the office. And then she ended up getting stroke from using this hand sanitizer. And I know it
Oh,
sounds harsh, right? But she
mm,
was having all these symptoms, and she used to be very healthy before, COVID hit. And then it's not just her. Out of her office manager and front desk receptionist were having the same symptoms. They didn't get it as harsh as my sister did, but it hit my sister harsh. And I think it hit her harsh because she knew that she couldn't get sick. Because when she comes
mm,
home, she has a mother who's on dialysis and she's already sick, who's not vaccinated because, we didn't get her vaccinated because we knew that if we were to get her vaccinated, I don't think her body can fight it, right?
Yeah.
And then, so then she was like using this hand sanitizer like religiously, and she was going through bottles of it, right? And then later it turns out that it was on recall, and there's like a class action lawsuit going on with, right? And then so we ended up hiring an attorney trying to like get on this class action lawsuit. But the reason why I bring this up is because going back to my mother's story, if we were to not pull the life support on her and to bring her home, let's say she miraculously somehow, woke up from her coma and they were able to stop the infection. And like the surgery that they had when they, amputated up above her knees, they didn't close up her wound, and they just had like a wound back on there. They didn't close it up because they couldn't find the source of the infection. And they were like, we may need to amputate more, right?
Mm.
So they didn't want to close her up. And let's say somehow miraculously we were able to bring her out of the hospital, right? Her left leg is gone. Her right side has stroke and she's not able to use it. The amount of care that needs to go into giving to my mom while taking care of my sister who's already has stroke and she needs to get used to this new life, right? That she's having to deal with. Just for my dad and my sister to give care is not enough. One of
Yeah.
us will need to give up our job or whatever it is completely to give care, right? And what most people don't realize or understand when you have a sick family member at your house is many people who are, like my close friends or like relatives or whatever church members, they'll be like, oh, how hard is it for your mom? How hard is it for your sister? I understand. It's very, very hard because they're having to get used to this new life, right? They're not able to move their body around like they used to, right? They're not able to do things like they used to, right? They were able to. So yeah, it's a huge adjustment for them. But the one that's struggling or the most is the one that's giving care, because now the caregiver, if it is a family member, you need to go ahead and take care of yourself, your life, and on top of that, take care of other person's life, right? And your life is now having to revolve around this person that's sick 100%, right?
Yeah.
We just thought that we couldn't do it. And then my biggest concern was this: my mom coming home, right, and having her conscious or whatever, and being depressed, and then saying that she doesn't want to live anymore. And why did you save me? Why didn't you pull the life support or do a NDR or whatever the case may be and just let me go, right? And her mentioning that if she were to mention that, those kind of things that I just mentioned, like why didn't you just let me go, right? And she's having to go through this like pain, like I can't like tell her to die, right? Like
Yeah.
how do you comfort that, right? And then so we just had to decide to pull the life support on her. And then the reason why I started fully diving into Gator is because I gave my work notice, right? Because my mom passed, and now like my dad's not in a good mental state, right? Because it was during COVID, and they only had one person allowed at the hospital for visit. It was very strict back in the day, right? You had to have yourself fully covered, and my mom was at the ICU during her stay, right? And then so my dad couldn't visit because my dad's like, okay, I think you're the right one to be there because you know the medical terms, you're in the medical field. And I had relationship with the doctors and the nurses and the people at the hospital, because some of these people that were attending my mom were my staffs at my job, because we used to go ahead and hire, people from big hospitals to come work for us. So then they
Right.
would go ahead and get my mom scheduled to get their MRI, CT scans faster because of my connections that I had and the relationships that I had, right? So then my dad couldn't come to visit my mom as frequent. And then I was there. So when my mom passed, my sister and my dad, they didn't really get to spend a lot of time with her at the end stage of her life, right?
Yeah.
Came to visit before we pulled out the life support. So for me, at least I had some time to go ahead and, gather myself and to prepare for my mom's passing, right? Because I'm
Mhm.
seeing her, every day. And then for my dad and my sister, it was very, very hard. So they're not in the right mental space. And, I need to go ahead and plan a funeral or whatever the case may be, right? And take care of my household. So then I let my work know that my mom passed and I need some time off. Guess how many days I got?
But two.
One.
Okay. Yeah, Nikki. You guys are almost close. So you get 3 days off if it's your immediate family members passing. And if it's your relatives or whatever the case may be, you get 1 day off of work. So then I had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday, Sunday doesn't count because it's the weekend. And then Monday, I reported back to work, right? Because there was nobody around to go ahead and cover the position that I was in, right?
Yeah.
So then I think that's when it hit me, right? I was like, oh, this is not okay, right?
No, there's got to
Or
be another way.
yeah, and it's not just because like I couldn't spend time with, like I couldn't spend more time. It's the fact that, you dedicate your life and your time and your energy for something, right? And the fact that I am replaceable, right? And my job is at risk or whatever the case may be, that's the part that I wasn't okay with, right?
Yeah.
You can be spending all your time and your energy and then giving your all at it. And when you no longer bring value, right, or cannot be there, you are replaceable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can be out the door anytime. And if I'm out
Mhm.
the door at any time for whatever reason, what can I do to go ahead and make money and support myself right away? Right? It's
Yeah.
not going to be working for another person. That's what I told myself, right? So then I started thinking, what is it that can I do by myself? Like I have to start a business, right? But what is it that I want to do, right?
Mhm.
Is it, building a product, or is it doing like whatever, like real estate? Is it, I need to find something, right? Where I'm not fireable. And then that's when it kind of like hit me. Oh yeah, I purchased this Gator program a year ago, right?
Mhm.
Um, and the guy was, very nice, and it seems like he's legit, right? Let's see what this is all about. So then I started going through the trainings like crazy while still showing up to my work. When I'm driving to, from point A to point B, right? That's all I would listen to. I would listen to at 2x speed or whatever the case may be, because there's a lot of material, right?
Yes.
and and then that's how I was able to transition from my W-2 to my Gator, and that's how I
Nice.
created the Gator community, right? And essentially, like it's like the best thing that I've done for myself, right? And it's
Mm.
the best money that you know I've spent for myself, because I don't really believe in, like, I used to not believe in mentorships, because there's a lot of scammers out there and like different types of mentorship, and things like that. I didn't really believe in the power of community, right?
Right.
But then joining Pace's community has completely not just changed my financial portion of my life, but just like my mindset on how I view things, right? And my perspective in life has completely changed.
So how did you get into TC work?
So then
What shifted from Gator over to that?
so I joined the Gator community, and I was trying to like find EMD and like transactional funding and PML deals and all these things like that, right? And then I met my husband, Jason, right?
Hmm.
And the way I met Jason is kind of like funny. I I'm a very, very, not very, very, but amongst extroverts, I'm an introvert. Amongst a bunch of introverts, I'm an extrovert, right? So then
Same.
I was I was listening to the content, I was helping on all of the live Zooms. I was doing everything that Pace was saying, right, to do, minus the networking part. And then I was wondering why I wasn't generating a single dollar, right? I'm like, this guy seems legit. Like the trainings are good, right? And I see that it's real because people post, pictures of their checks or whatever the case may be. I know this method can work,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But I haven't generated a single dollar. So I was like, what is it that I'm doing wrong, right? What I wasn't doing was connecting with people, right? I would hop
Yeah.
on live Zooms or whatever the case may be, but I wasn't connecting with people on the side, right? Once I was off the Zoom, I wasn't really getting involved within the community, introducing
Mhm.
myself, being curious on what it is that others are doing, and
Mm.
find what it is that they need to see if I can provide value. That piece was missing, right? And then so then I was just like, okay, then I guess I have to start networking and go to meetups, right? And then so there's a guy named JJ Azizian here in Southern California, and
Yeah.
he's known to be a huge networker, and he puts on a community picnic event once a year, right? And then so I signed up, and I think it was like $5 or something like that as a donation to like a baseball club that he supports for like kids, right? It was
Mhm.
going towards there. I paid, I got in my car, and then halfway there, I got sick to my stomach. So I turned my car around and I came back home. And then I was just like, I can't do this, right? Like, I don't know anybody there. Like, what am I supposed to say? I know I'm gonna look like a loser standing in the corner, right? Like, I'm just awkward, right? And I was like, I can't do this. So I turned my car around, I came home, right? And then the following year, not the following year, the following year, I ended up going. I even volunteered, and I was at the registration desk, like giving like wristbands and things like that. It was amazing. But a couple months later, John Lee, who's in the community, and he's phenomenal. He's, you know, super strength is, helping people build their corporate credits, right? So if anybody's looking within the community, to connect with somebody who can do that, reach out to John Lee. But he's also in Southern California and he lives in Pasadena, right? And he posted on the Gator community Facebook page saying, hey, do we have anybody living in Los Angeles? Let's connect, right? And then I was like, oh, I live in LA, right? So I was like, I'm in LA, right? And he sent me a private message. He DM'd me and he was like, hey, if we were to go ahead and have a Los Angeles meetup, would you be interested in attending? And I was just like, sure, right? I'll try to go this time. And then the day came around and I went to work, right? I told my assistant about it. And, I've been preparing for it, getting all my tasks out of the way, making sure, all my employees are, doing their thing, right? Everything's okay. And then like an hour before, my assistant's like, hey, you need to get ready to, head out, right? So like, she's checking in with me to see what else is outstanding. And then as it gets closer, because I think the meetup was at 3:30. As it gets closer to, 3 o'clock, because it was gonna take me 30 minutes to get to the Griffith Park, I started doing all sorts of things that I didn't need to do, right? Oh my God, like I think we need to order more supplies, like are all the confirmations done for the next day's patient? Like I think we need to go and clean the closet today, right? Like we've been meaning to for the past 2 weeks, and then my assistant was like, "No, get in the car and go," right? I was like, "No, I think today's the day. Like I feel like I need to clean now, right?" And she's like, "Jamie, you told me that you got sick to your stomach and you turned around last time. Like you are gonna go today." Right. So she shoved me in my car. She's like, I got this, go. So I went, right? And I ended up showing to a wrong table at like a birthday party. There was like these huge people, right? And I was like, I was just like standing there because I thought that was a meetup. And then they're like, can we help you? I was like, yeah, I'm here for the meetup. And he's like, they're like, this is a birthday party. I think the table that you're looking for is down over there, right? And I was just like, okay, sorry. That looks like John Lee, right? So I went over, introduced myself, and then here comes this bald Asian guy, which is Jason. And then he's like, going around like introducing himself to people, and then like, he's like attending to like everybody, helping John, right? So I was like, okay. And then I kind of like stuck to Kathy and Ingrid because they were there that day, and I was just kind of like quiet listening to it. And then Pace was supposed to release one like live training video. And I think that was the white labeling, Gator 2.0, right? That was the white labeling training that he was going to release to the community, new excitement. So from Griffith Park, we went to Jason's friend's restaurant. That was not too far, right? In Silver Lake. And then, we did the training all together, and then we ate dinner, and then he was about to leave, right? Jason was about to leave. And one of the reason why I was there was to network with people, but it was also to try to get insight on if it was the right timing to sell a couple of properties that my parents owned in Southern California, right? Because my dad was like, I don't want to deal with it anymore. Like your mom's not around, it's hard. It's getting hard for me to like manage. I just want to, sell it and retire, right? But then I'm just like, okay, is it the right time to sell or like should we hold on to it? Like what's going on? Like there must be some kind of thing where we can kind of like do to assess if it's like the right time or not, right? At that time I didn't even know what that word was. I was so new, right? And then so Jason was just like, okay, guys, I'm gonna leave. It was like nice meeting you guys, right? But I sat next to him and I overheard the conversations that he was having with people, and he sounded very knowledgeable, right? So I chased him down. I was like, hey, like I have a question, like, can I ask you? And he was like, okay. And I was like, it's kind of like personal, right? And then so I was like talking to him about it. He's like, let's grab a seat. So he sat down with me and we talked about for like 30 minutes, right? And then he was just like, okay, here's my number, text me your address, right? And I'm gonna do this thing called underwriting, right? And it's gonna have your address. I'm gonna, research the neighborhood, and it's his skill sets and his specialty. He's very, very good at it, right? And I was just like, okay. And then that night he went home and I went home. And then like about 2 hours later, he was like, check your email. And I had this like spreadsheet with all these numbers and like what his opinion is, YouTube videos on why he thinks it is that. And he was like providing all these like data analysis on it, right? And he was like, at the end of the day, I don't think it's a good time to sell. If you can hold on to it, it would be good, right? And then he goes, if you want me to talk to your father about it, not selling and to convince him, let me know. I will love to go ahead and hop on a call with him. Right. And then I was like, this crazy guy, right? This crazy guy. Like, I've never brought a man to my parents before, let alone like make my parents talk to a guy over a phone. If I'm gonna bring somebody home, it's gonna be somebody that I'm seriously dating, and like I'm gonna introduce my to my family to get like married or whatever the case may be. And he wants to hop on a call with my dad, right? I was like, my dad's gonna get all sorts of idea, like we're right. And then Jason was like, no, it's because when a family member is telling something, they may be hard-headed, but if they were to get like an outside perspective of it, they may be more like logical and just not emotional, right? And I was like, well, thank you for your help. If I ever need to get to that stage, I will let you know, right? And then the next like couple days go by, and then he sends a screenshot of his uh like computer desktop, and then he goes, hey, you don't seem like a type of person who would be driving a minivan, right? And then I was like, what? I was like, what? Because I used to drive a minivan. I didn't drive a minivan at that time, but I used to. That was like my very, very first car that my dad handed down to me, right? And then he got himself another car. He was like, I'm not gonna get you a new car. Like you're gonna wreck it anyways, get into a car accident. So just drive the old car. And I was fine with it. But I ended up, and my dad was right. I ended up getting into a car accident. I totaled it, right? And then so that car is not there any longer. But I was just like, how do you know that I drive a minivan? I was like, I gave this guy an address to underwrite on my property, and he's doing like a full background search on me, right? Like this weirdo, right? And I was like, how'd you know that I used to drive a minivan? Like, do they report that kind of stuff on my credit bureau, like on my credit file? Like, I don't know where this guy is getting this information from, right? And I just like, this creep, right? And then he literally sends me a screenshot of his desktop, and then there's the Google Maps satellite view of my, home that I asked him to underwrite, and then it's the driveway, and there's my dad's minivan parked, right? And I was like, oh, okay, that's not my minivan. That's my dad's minivan. We don't have it anymore. We sold it. Google needs to update their Google Map, satellite photo, whatever the case may be. And then, we were just talking back and forth. And then 3 months later, we ended up getting married. Right? I did meet my husband within the community and Pace jokes about it all the time that I paid to get laid, and then you could make money while you're getting laid. And then I was just like, okay, I don't I don't know how to feel about it. Yes, it's true, but I don't know how to feel about it.
We'll make sure we bleep that out.
Right? And then at my day with Pace, he wanted to film like a Gator advertising for the Gator method, of me saying, yes, you can get paid to get laid or something like that. And then I think his whole team was like, no, we're not gonna do that. Yeah. So there was that portion of it, but that's how I ended up joining a top tier TC community. Long story short, is because Jason does a lot of private money lending deal, right? We connect a lot of community members to private money lending deals that are, shorter term on 3 to 6 months, right? And he would stay up late at night and not come to bed, right? Then I asked him like, hey, is there anything that I can do to go ahead and support you? Right? Because obviously I cannot underwrite properties for you because that's a skill set that takes time for me to learn. And you'll have to underwrite thousands of properties for me to actually get to somewhat of a level where Jason can feel comfortable to trust me to underwrite. Right?
Right.
And for me to just kind of like oversee and review once I'm done. But that was going to take some time. And then, so I said, what is there anything else that I can help you with? Right. And then he was just like, if somebody can just get the paperwork out of the way for me, that would at least save me, a couple hours a week or a day. Right. And that adds up. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And then he was just like, there's this thing called Top Tier TC where Molly is training community members who are interested on how to become a TC. And Jason was just like, I used to do all the TC work at my commercial brokerage because he used to be Coldwell Banker commercial real estate agent for like 8 years, right? While managing his restaurants and being a chef and an EMT and all these things on top of it. Yeah, I know. He's crazy. I can't do it, but I don't know how he did it, but he used to do all that. And he's like, I used to do all the TC work. It's not that hard, right? And he's like, you're smart, you're detail oriented. I think you can do it, right? And then so, I signed up and then some guy called me to interview, which was a bit different than Gator, because the Gator just took my credit card and that was it. But the top tier TC program, I had somebody call and interview me. I gave them my credit card info, and then it kind of like dawned upon me, right? I was like, this can be a scam, right? So I asked the representative, I said, are you scamming me? Right? I said, how do I know that this is not a scam? And then the guy goes, well, you should have asked me that before I charged, $7,000 on your credit card, because now I have all that info, right? So you have no choice but to trust me. And he was like, in a minute, I will send you the receipt so you can know that I'm not a scammer, right? And indeed, I did get the receipt, right? It did come into my email, so they're not a scam. And then, I went through the whole training again, kind of like binge watched it. I think I went through the whole thing in about like 4 days, right? I watched the whole curriculum, and you know, it was amazing, right? It was very, very straight to the point and very detail oriented. It's like boom, 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 and then like you take the quiz and then you get your certificate, right?
Right.
And then that's how I became a top tier TC to go ahead and initially assist, our team, right, our business, to do paperwork. And then I kind of like branched out in networking with other investors that are within the community to go ahead and become a TC on their team to go ahead and protect them from their deals with the right paperwork.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's so
That's a
nice.
great story. You crack me up.
Jamie, on your
They're
TC,
really funny.
it was very funny. On your TC work, are you you're still putting yourself out there like for work, right? You're looking for more people. If somebody wants to have you as their TC, their top tier TC, how can they get in touch with you? What's a good way for them to get in touch with you?
They can, they can find me on social media, right? It's JAIME Kim. So it's my first name, my last name. My husband's last name is Park, and a lot of community members they have a struggle finding me because they'll go into the community Facebook page and they'll type in Jamie Park, and I don't
Yeah,
come out, right? Because
I did that.
I decided to go ahead and keep my last name. Um, just because I wanted to, and Jason was okay with it, right? So it's JAIME_92. So they can either message me on Instagram or they can go ahead and email me at tcwithjamie@gmail.com,
Awesome.
Nice.
right?
Great.
And there's a funny story behind my English name as well, because I do have a Korean legal name, right? Normally people spell Jamie Jamie, right? But my name is spelled Jaime. And that's because my younger sister, when she was 5 and I was 8, my parents were trying to enroll me into elementary school. And then they turned around and they asked me, like, is there something that you would like to be called instead of like your legal Korean name? Because, it's kind of hard to pronounce. And then out of nowhere, I don't know why, I was like, oh, yeah, I want to be called Jamie. Right. And then my mom was like, how do you spell that? I don't know why. I looked at my 5-year-old sister. I said, how do you spell Jamie? And then my sister went Jaime. And that's what my parents put down. And I became Jaime for the rest of my childhood and probably forever. Right.
Yeah.
I
Cute.
Yeah.
think,
Fun.
yeah.
That's awesome. Jamie, thank
So,
you so much for sharing your
yeah, thank you. I know this is great.
you are an amazing person, individual, and I know you have that you're offering a lot to our community. I know you do to me and a lot of people that know you. We appreciate you in our community so very much because you have so much to give, and you bring so much value, right, to our community. Sorry, I'm outside. There's a truck driving by, but
It's
um,
okay.
anyway, thank you so much for being here
Yeah.
today and for sharing your wisdom with us always, always.
Thank you
Yeah.
guys for having me.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
it's really nice to get to know you.
Yeah. Thank
It's
you.
not so bad, is it? It's kind of fun. It's just hanging out with us.
Just a bunch of old ladies with a youngin.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Barb.
Yeah,
You're
thank you.
Thank
We'll
you
be
so much.
seeing you.
We
And
appreciate you.
don't forget, we invite people back, so this isn't the last time, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's
Catch
fine.
up with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be good.
Next time, we have our conversation because we are like Jason and I and like our team is looking to go ahead and transition from private money lending in a shorter term deals into multifamily, right? So if we can have, I would love to go ahead and have an in-depth conversation in why it is that we're transitioning from short-term, lending deals into a multifamily. I think it would be like a good educational session on for your viewers, right? And for our
Yeah,
community members who are interested in investing in multifamily.
I
yeah,
agree. That's that,
that'd be
and that
great.
is something that you see a lot of people is shifting to that right now. And I would love to hear you talk about that. So maybe sooner than later we'll have you on. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
that'd be nice.
Thank
Say
you,
hi to
Jen.
Jason.
Have a glorious day. Take good care.
Thank you, ladies. Bye.
Bye.